A lot of my videos are geared towards photographers, beginners, intermediate, even people who are more advanced. But this video is different. This video is for someone who wants to be the model and the photographer and wants to make the end result a sultry boudoir portrait. So you'd like to give your significant other a little something special, some boudoir photos. Maybe it's for your wedding day or your anniversary. Maybe it's for a holiday or birthday gift, or you know what? Maybe it's just to be sassy. Hell, maybe it's even just for yourself. You want to show off your sexy side. But how to do it? I can't think of one of my friends who would feel totally comfortable having someone else taking boudoir photos of them, even if it is a friend or a professional photographer. And never mind that comfort factor, let's talk about the cost. There are some phenomenal photographers out there specializing in boudoir photography who will provide wardrobe and hair and makeup support, but it can get quite expensive. I mean, I'm a photographer and I would never dissuade anyone from going to a professional. But I also understand that sometimes you want to do it yourself. So that's what we are going to talk about today, taking your own boudoir portraits. I'll be giving you general photography tips, but I'll also talk about wardrobe, hair and makeup, environment, and ways to make yourself more comfortable with the whole thing. All from my own experience, taking my own photos for my videos, and I will also share with you some of my own photos to give you some ideas. Throughout the video, I'll mention other videos that I've made where you can learn more about any of the topics that we discuss. Let's start with general photography tips. You can make this part as simple or as complicated as you'd like. I do suggest keeping it simple if you aren't familiar with your camera or with photography principles. So let's start there. Gear. You can use any camera that has some sort of self-timer. You can use a remote trigger. There are even remotes for cell phone cameras, but I find that it's hard to hide a remote when you're trying to make love to the camera. So a camera with a self-timer. The other thing you'll need is a tripod or somewhere to balance your camera. I have little tripods for my cell phone that will also work with small cameras, and I have larger tripods that work well with my larger cameras. No need to have anything expensive. My large tripods are inexpensive and ones that I ordered from Amazon or I got in a big box store. The benefit to using a tripod, as opposed to balancing your camera on a pile of books or something, is that you'll be able to adjust the angle of the camera, like taking a shot from slightly above you or turning the camera to portrait orientation. The benefit to using a pile of books is that you already have them handy. The last piece of the puzzle is lighting. My very best advice on this topic is to turn your flash off. Don't try to monkey too much with artificial lighting. The best and softest light to work with is sunlight. Try to arrange yourself so that you have some window light. If that doesn't work for you, then you can get into other types of lighting. I have a whole video series on different types of studio lighting, but you might just be working with a desk lamp or something like that. I definitely suggest having the light coming in from the side or maybe something a little bit in front of you, but off to the side still, rather than just using your overhead lights or something directly in front of you. Definitely getting something down closer to your level will illuminate your eyes, which are a very important part of your photo. Moving on to camera settings. We aren't going to go too in-depth here. We don't need to. Like I said earlier, we're going to keep things simple. I'll give you a few tips that will make everything easy. We already talked about self-timer. The option for self-timer is often right on the top of the camera or maybe on the back. It usually looks something like this. If you can't find it, check out the camera's manual. You can download many manuals online if you don't have yours. Just look for self-timer in the index and you can get step-by-step instructions for your camera. Next, you need to choose a mode for the camera. Whether you are using a point-and-shoot or a DSLR or something in between, there will often be a dial at the top of the camera with modes, or a button that says mode, which you use with other wheels on the camera to choose the exposure mode. Many people have their camera on auto and leave it there. That's totally fine. That means that the camera is going to take care of you. You'll press the button to take the photo, and the camera is going to make all of the decisions about settings and everything else, all for you. There are other options out there though. A lot of cameras have a portrait option. It is often shown as a picture of a lady's face. This option is great because it will give you a more natural looking skin tone, and it also will help blur out the background a little bit. Depending on your camera, you probably won't get a super blurry background like you see in professional portraits though. Now, if you're using a point and shoot camera, that may be all you need to consider when setting up your camera. However, if you are more advanced with photography, or if you'd like to be, I have a video series on photography basics. You can find it at the link above. After watching those videos, you may want to experiment with settings and such. But don't be afraid to go back to those simple settings like auto, portrait, or program mode if you're getting frustrated. The success of the photo is far more tied to you and your mood and the setting you create than how your camera's set. As long as you can get yourself in focus, everything else isn't so important. And that brings me to the last camera setting I want to talk about. That is autofocus. If you are using a point and shoot camera, the autofocus mode may already be set up to seek out the subject in the photo and focus on it. If you're using something else, you may need to learn a little bit more about your autofocus options. They're different with different cameras, but I suggest starting with one that is the smartest, the one that does the most work for you. This might mean digging into that camera manual again, but I suggest finding that smartest autofocus mode and using it. One last thing about your camera isn't a setting in the camera, it's where you set the camera. Try not to set it up super close to where you are sitting as the subject. If you have the space, I recommend setting the camera back quite a bit and zooming in if you can. The reason for this is that it will give you a more natural perspective. Let me explain that a little bit. No matter the distance to the camera, whatever is closest to the camera is going to look larger. As the camera gets closer to you, this is amplified. Now let's move on to styling, wardrobe, hair, and makeup. These are all going to depend upon you. However, let go of the idea that you have to look any one certain way. Think about you. What makes you feel sexy? And think about your partner. What seems to float his or her boat? The answer will be a little bit different for every one of us, but forming an idea around what you feel most comfortable doing will get you far better results than doing something because you think it seems to be the most sexy. Let me show you an example. Here's a self-portrait that I did a few weeks ago. I'm not wearing lacy lingerie. Instead, I chose to wear a t-shirt. I imagined it to be my boyfriend's favorite old t-shirt. I thought it would help make me a little bit more playful and, it's fun. For bottoms, I've been working out a lot and I was feeling good about my body that day, so I went with some simple black panties. You could have taken each and every one of these shots though and worn something that covers up a little bit more, like a pair of boy shorts or even some denim cutoffs or cute pajama shorts. You can go anywhere with your wardrobe. These photos will be more about your attitude than your wardrobe. If you feel comfortable in lingerie, go for it. If you want to be more covered up, do that. I actually have a video where I talk about different wardrobe options. You can find it at the link above. Now let's talk environment. Where are you taking these photos? I find that the bed is a great place. We all have one, so it's usually an easy place. I've also done photos in the bathroom. The bathtub can be fun. Wherever you are though, simplify it as much as possible. I clear away any clutter. I've moved lamps and furniture. If you're on the bed, I tend to strip everything away except for the fitted sheet and maybe the flat sheet or a small blanket to play with, maybe a couple pillows. That way, everything looks cleaner and you have less to worry about. You aren't dealing with arranging the puffy comforter or lining up your tower of pillows. When it comes to taking self-portraits, a simple environment is always better. In these photos, like I showed you before, I have the sheet on the bed and left 2 pillows in the background, but that's it. Everything else is in a pile in the closet. Or in this one, I just hung out in the hallway. I feel like taking photos around the house can help your viewer kind of make a connection to the photos. Now let's talk posing. The key here is going to be experimenting a bit for your particular situation and your body. I have some tips to get you going. I mentioned earlier that whatever is closest to the camera will look the largest. So Think about what is your least favorite body part. For a lot of us, it's our legs or our behind. Just try not to put those parts much closer to the camera than your face. Instead, try if it's your behind that you don't like, lay on your stomach or stand or kneel. Spend a bit of time posing in front of the mirror before you even get to the camera. It's a good way to figure out what works best for you. But no matter what kind of poses work for you, stretching yourself out will always make you happier with the look. Pretend there's a string pulling up from the top of your head. On a related note, put tension in your body, even down to your hands and your feet. It may feel good to be in a relaxed position on the bed, lying there, but putting tension in your body, like lifting yourself up a bit, like you have that string pulling you upwards just a little bit, will help your body and subsequently the photo to look better. Beyond posing your body, a few of my go-to things are play with your hair, put your hands in it, flop it over, it's sexy. Similarly, play with your clothes, giving your t-shirt a tug or hooking your thumb in your bra strap. It gives your hands something to do and it tends to look sultry or maybe playful. Let's talk face now. Consider looking away from the camera a bit. That can be sexy in kind of a teasing way. When you are looking at the camera, squint your eyes just a touch. That's probably the easiest way to make yourself look better in any photo. And last, don't forget that smiling can be sexy too. Giving sexy serious face can be great. There are a lot of people who look super hot with pursed lips or a partially opened mouth, but a playful smile can be just as engaging. And the very last thing that I want to mention in posing is working to the light. Remember where your light is, whether it's a window or a lamp, and orient yourself to it so that you are illuminating at least a part of your face and any part of your body that you are really wanting to highlight. Okay, along with photography is editing. You may want to leave your photos as is, right out of the camera, and that's awesome. If you do want to do any editing, there are lots of options out there. There are even free options. Some computers even come with some basic editing software like Photos on Apple computers. Or you can download something like Google's Picasa, which gives you basic tools as well. You'll be able to do a little bit of cropping if you want, or maybe even add a filter, which changes the look of the photo. One of my favorite tricks is converting a photo to black and white. A lot of photos look okay in color and then end up looking really cool in monochrome. Now, I'm going to rewind just a little bit back to the taking photos part. Taking boudoir portraits can sound a little scary and be a little uncomfortable or awkward at first. That awkwardness will telegraph in your photos, so getting yourself comfortable with the whole idea is really important. First, make sure you are alone or can lock yourself into whatever room you're using. And remember that you're alone. No one's watching, so it's okay. One thing I like to do to help myself relax and get into a groove is to play music. If there is music that makes you feel a little bit in the mood, all the better. Another thing to keep in mind is that the photos that you are taking don't have to go anywhere other than the trash can if you don't like them. You certainly won't like all of the photos that you take. When I first started doing self-portraits, I would literally take hundreds of shots to get just 10 or so usable ones. Now, I didn't really know what I was doing being in front of the camera, and I didn't have anyone giving me advice, and I was posting these things on my website, so hopefully you won't have to take that many photos to get a few good ones. One last thing is a little help from a glass of champagne or a shot of tequila maybe. I actually don't do it myself because I would just get sleepy, but if you think that it would help you relax, go for it. So that's all that I can think of for today. I hope that you take this information and you go take some beautiful photos of yourself. If you want more information, I do have a few other videos that you might find helpful. I've talked about wardrobe in a video or taking self-portraits. You can find those links above. You can always also send over your questions to me if you get stuck. You can comment below, or if you want to be a little more private, you can send me a private message on Facebook. You can find a link to my Facebook page in the description of this video. And, I think I do have one last tip for you. Have fun. It'll definitely show through in your photos.